Yo, welcome back to another video. We are going to jump into one major trade that the Atlanta Hawks could make to reset their franchise and not prevent themselves from competing next year. So let's get into that. We're going to go into trading some draft picks. We're going to go into trading some major pieces for Atlanta. We're going to see how all this plays out in this one scenario. I think it's more fun than boiling the ocean under 100 different scenarios. We're going to take this one scenario, dive into it for Atlanta fans and for fans in the NBA, and see what we get. All right, so let's jump into it. All right, so Atlanta Hawks and the San Antonio Spurs. They have been linked in the last several months with because the Spurs own several of Atlanta's future picks in the trade that sent DeJounte Murray over to Atlanta. So a lot of people have discussed that Atlanta is going to want to own, they want to get their draft picks back to control their draft going forward, and maybe they would trade something to San Antonio, but there's not really a lot of incentive for San Antonio to give up those picks when they may view Atlanta as a organization that they could capitalize on in future mishaps and have their picks and control their picks. I don't think that Atlanta's front office is going to value their own picks as much as people are talking about. I understand why there's value in controlling your own picks. It gives you flexibility with the step-in rule and trading future picks and not having to trade swaps instead of real picks. But it's a lot tougher to make something happen to get your own picks back. And I think that if the Hawks, I think that having Quinn Snyder in place there, having a decent roster with some pieces on it, some veteran players, and having this number one pick and having a player in Trae Young that you've already accepted may not be your guy. Let's look at something that could really reset the way this team looks, but keep them competing in year one. So we are going to trade Trae Young to the Spurs. They're going to get the point guard to pair with Wembanyama. We are going to also trade, which I haven't seen this proposed yet, but I think it's an interesting scenario. We're going to trade the number one pick over to the Spurs as well. So that's a lot of value going to the Spurs. We're going to build this package out. But from Atlanta's standpoint, this is a draft that's got a lot of win now players, or at least role players that you can see coming in and fitting in a role day one, not superstars, maybe not even all-stars. But if you're trying to win right now and you like some of the pieces that you have, DeJounte Murray and Jalen Johnson, you don't necessarily want to reset this anyway and get picks 3, 4, 5 years out into the future. So we're going to trade the first overall pick in Trae Young to the Spurs. We're going to trade Keldon Johnson to the Hawks. We're going to trade Devontae Graham to the Hawks. Salary filler there. Keldon Johnson's interesting, tradable contract. You could move that somewhere else if you want to. You could also just use him, maybe you can unlock a little bit of something there. He played good a couple of years ago when DeJounte Murray was there. Maybe they just like playing together. So from a pick standpoint, the Spurs are going to move 4 and 8 to Atlanta. Now they're getting number one back, right? So they're still going to get a player, whatever player they want in this draft. We're also going to trade one future pick back to Atlanta. So we're going to trade the 2025 Atlanta pick back to them. And that is going to be pretty much the deal we make here. So that is a success with the salaries. 3 picks going back to Atlanta. They're giving 1, so they're netting 2 picks here. So they get one of their picks back, but most importantly, they get 2 top 10 picks in this year's draft to get win now players if they view several players in the lottery this way. Now, they've worked out a lot of different guys, so let's jump into who they could pick with that. So we're going to jump into the mock draft simulator. We are going to restart this, and we are going to trade that first overall pick to the Spurs. So this is going to be our step 1 in rebuilding Atlanta on the fly. So the first pick goes to the Spurs, 4 and 8 goes to Atlanta. So the Spurs, I think if they trade for that number 1 overall pick, I think they're going to look at a player like Zachary Risacher, who can come in on the wing. He's played with Wembanyama before, both from France, some familiarity there. A lot of people have talked about them drafting Sarr or Clean to pair with Wembanyama, but I don't think they're going to prioritize that right now. I think it'd be better to go ahead and you can get another big man later on, maybe a veteran guy to play some minutes with Victor. So I'm going to take Risacher number 1. I think if Sarr falls to 2, that's where the Wizards are most likely going to go. And in this scenario, that's that's who they're taking. So we're going to take Sar for the Wizards. Now the Rockets at number 3. There's a couple of different places they can go. There's been talk about how they like Klingon, pairing him with Sengun, or maybe trading this pick to another team that wants Klingon. There's also a lot of people have mocked Reed Shepherd there. I think Reed Shepherd is a surefire top 5 pick with this group of players we have. I think if the Rockets don't find a trade that they really like, they should just go ahead and take Reed Shepherd. Put him in that backcourt. They've got a lot of athleticism on the wing. They've got Sengun down low. They can go out and find some veteran backups in the free agency market, or maybe with their other picks. So I'm going to go ahead and take Shepherd for the Rockets. So that's going to leave us with an interesting board here for Atlanta. So they've got 4 and 8. All right. And so in this scenario, which I could definitely see playing out with these players being on the board at the 4th pick, we are going to have Atlanta take Donovan Klingon. So what this is going to do is it's going to make Clint Capella and then Yeka Okongwu very tradable. And they probably already are tradable right now outside of this trade. But getting a player like Klingon, that's just 100% you're going to move those other guys. At least one of them, potentially 2. So we're going to take Klingon at number 4. And so let's see who we can get at 8 here. So the Wizards have been mocked with Buzelis a lot. I think that would make sense for them, getting a guy on the wing who could potentially turn into a shot creator, a ball handler. His shot hasn't looked bad. We're not going to get into too much of these picks because we're mainly just doing the Hawks here today. So we're going to take Buzelis at 5. At number 6 with the Hornets, a couple different ways they could go. I think Castle being here at 6, pairing him in the backcourt. You have a really big backcourt with him and LaMelo. LaMelo is 6'7". Castle listed as 6'7", a 6'6", 6'7", somewhere in there. I think having 2, and he is a ball handler. He wants to play point guard. We'll see if he does. He hasn't been really working out for teams with lead guards. But I don't think that would stop the Hornets from taking him. And if he doesn't want to go, I don't think he's going to go in one of those top 2 or 3 picks. So I think the Hornets would be a decent spot for him to land. They've been doing some restructuring there with the organization. Let's see if they can get back into the winning ways. So making good decisions. So bring him in and sell him on your situation. So we're going to take Castle at number 6. At number 7 with the Trailblazers. Don't think Dillingham. I got the ESPN draft board here, by the way. The mock draft simulator. We got the ESPN top draft board. They have Dillingham at 7. They're not going to take another small guard in Portland. Net Connect is an interesting pick there that has been mocked some. They have had him work out. Topic, I think, is another. He's not a small guard, but he's another guard. They already have Scoot and Simons. Maybe Simons is a trade candidate, but they also have Sharp there, who's a little bit smaller as well. Maybe they look at Ron Holland. Maybe they look at Cody Williams. I think Connect is a guy they would want to bring in right now and have a potential guy who's hitting more of his prime on that rookie contract than a developmental piece, because they aren't in the best cap situation in Portland. That's for another video. So we're going to draft Connect there. So now Atlanta is back on the clock at number 8, and we're rebuilding this on the fly, rebuilding the way this team looks, right? Dillingham, you're just going back into the Trey scenario there. I don't think that you're going to want to bring another small guard that doesn't play defense in there. Now, Trey is a lot better than Dillingham, in my opinion. We'll see how Dillingham progresses. He could be amazing. But obviously, Trey right now is much better than Dillingham. Topic is interesting. He's probably not going to play much in year 1 because of that ACL injury. And so I don't think that's a good win now piece. Saloon is interesting from a profile standpoint to put in Atlanta. But if you're trying to win now and you don't really see these guys as that much more, the ceiling on these guys is that much higher than some of these college players, I don't think you take that here. I don't think you take Saloon. Now, this is where you say the same reasons with Ron Holland about not a win now player. He's young, he's raw. But I think he gives you some more day one value on the wing than a guy like Saloon. So he's in play for us here. Now, let me know in the comments if you think we should go in a different direction with this, but I doing this on the fly to see what they would do on draft day had the board fall here. Ron Holland, Cody Williams, interesting pieces, Devin Carter, Jacoby Walter. So if we're looking at what they can do rebuilding the franchise and now have drafted Klingon, they're going to probably trade Capella. I think what you do here is you go ahead and draft. I'm gonna go ahead and take Ron Holland. Nobody, obviously, this is not a commonly mocked pick because if you're not trading the picks, then you're not going to take Ron Holland #1, most likely. I think you take Holland here. You pair him with Jalen Johnson. You've got Klingon on the back line. You bring in Holland in on the wing. I think he can play from day one as off the bench for you. It also gives us the opportunity to trade DeAndre Hunter. So we're going to take Ron Holland. So now my Grizzlies are on the clock at 9. I wouldn't love this board if it fell to them. But anyway, so now you've got Klingon manning the 5 for you in Atlanta. You've got Ron Holland on the wing. So there you go. So now we've got a major draft day trade for Atlanta. You're making the decision here that DeJounte Murray is your lead guard that you're going forward with. You've traded Trae Young to the Spurs. Some people may hate this. They're giving up the #1 pick as well, but I think getting these 2 picks back in this draft and your 2025 pick back, maybe they negotiate super hard, and the fact that they are giving up the #1 pick, they get another future pick back. We'll let those front offices decide that. But I think this is a trade. You bring Klingon in to man your 5. It makes Clint Capella and Onyeka Okongwu very movable. I think there's a lot of teams out there that you could get some other role players or maybe some future. For Capella, you're probably not getting a first, but for Okongwu, would the Grizzlies trade you? Maybe you could even trade #9 for Okongwu. Maybe even a future first for Okongwu. Something like that. Would the Thunder be entertain that? Would the Thunder trade you another lottery pick, maybe #12 for Okongwu? That's something I think they could consider. He's also a floor spacer, so they could still play 5 out with him and Chet on the floor. And you bring in Ron Holland to revitalize your wing, to pair him with, like we said, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Jalen Johnson, DeAndre Hunter. It makes DeAndre Hunter a little bit flexible as well on what you want to do with him. But to me, this really opens up the door for Atlanta to rebuild, quote unquote, rebuild on the fly and really commit to Murray, right? He hasn't really said that he wants to get out of there. I think if he's the lead guard, he's going to be bought in. And you've got some young talent coming along with him. He's still in his late 20s, hitting his prime. That's going to give you the most flexibility and play the most fun lineups. I think from Quinn Snyder's perspective, Klingon comes in and plays that kind of Rudy Gobert role, right? You can even it gives you a lot of flexibility to play Holland and maybe even DeAndre Hunter at the 4 in this scenario. And with Hunter, you have that shooting that you didn't have with John Collins. And then you've got guys like AJ Griffin, Kobe Buffkin, who they drafted in the first last year. You've got maybe even other moves, other players you get back. Keldon Johnson is now in the fold and on that wing rotation. I think gives you a lot more flexibility on the wing. And I think from Atlanta's standpoint, the biggest thing you're doing here is you're choosing. You've chosen to go with Murray, who I think was who I would choose given the contract situation and the level of play. And you've set your franchise like this is the path we're going down, which it hasn't seemed like Atlanta has had a specific path they've been following in the last several years. So let me know what you think in the comments about this trade and what you think maybe some other options that Atlanta can make here, maybe some trade ideas for Capella and for Okongwu. But appreciate you checking out the channel. Like the video, subscribe. We're going to try to do this for some more teams in the top 10, maybe the lottery, and we'll go from there. But yeah, peace.